All right, you ready?
I'm ready, dude. I'm ready.
It's about to get awkward.
Two guys in a room.
Yep.
Talking about.
All right, hey everybody. This is my friend Andrew Birky, and he is the worship leader over at Clearpoint Church in Pasadena, and he is a rocket scientist. That may not exactly be true, but he does legitimately have a rocket science shirt, like a NASA shirt.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we're gonna just talk and see how that goes. All right. First things first, I just kind of want to talk about you and just introduce yourself and things like that. So, you're the worship leader at Clearpoint Church in Pasadena, and how long have you been there now?
Yeah. So I first showed up at Clearpoint back in 2015 when I was down here interning at one of the NASA contractors. So I was here for like a couple summers and kept going back to school. And then when I graduated full time, that was in 2017. So I've been at Clearpoint around full time since 2017. I didn't come on doing worship, like on staff for worship, until I think September 2018. So it's been about 2.5 years now where I've been on staff doing worship. So yeah, 2.5 years.
Yeah, but you were doing music and stuff though before that too, like with the church. I mean.
So I was. It wasn't much longer before that. It was probably 7 or 8 months that I had been on the worship team before I actually came on staff to lead.
Gotcha.
So it's probably been 3.5 years.
Of doing stuff there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And y'all's pastor is Brian Lambert.
Lambert.
I happen to know him because he was my youth minister way back in the day, which
1960s,
which might make you think that I'm old, but really you should just wonder how old he is. You know what I mean? No,
the
he's
things
awesome,
I don't
though.
ask. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I make the joke that you're a rocket scientist. I know that's not exactly what you are, but you do legitimately contract for NASA and things like that. So, talk about that. What do you do? What's it like working for NASA?
Yeah.
I mean, because if I'm not mistaken, I saw a picture of you doing your thing one time, and you were like in the control room where like all the movies show the control room, and there's always like 1,000 people in there.
Yeah.
And of course there was only like you and like one other dude in the picture you showed me. But so talk about that, man.
Yeah.
How'd that happen? What do you do?
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, back in college, I studied aerospace engineering. So I went to Purdue, which is in Indiana. A lot of people don't know where it is.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
either.
So it's in Indiana. So I studied aerospace engineering there, and I had a couple internships down here. And then when I graduated, I came down full time, and I work for Odyssey Space Research. They're essentially a NASA contractor. All they do is contract work for NASA. And so when I first came down here, I was in flight operations with the propulsion group.
Okay.
And so
I don't know what that means.
Okay.
But I mean, I would love to pretend like I'm the smart guy who knows what flight operations is. Is this the guy? Are you the guy who you're communicating with the people who are up in space, in the air, or you're communicating with their spaceship, not necessarily them? How does it?
I'm much more. So I was in flight operations. Now I've switched roles. I'm in engineering. But both times, like, I wasn't working directly with astronauts. I was like supporting systems on the spacecraft.
Right.
And so most of the people that you see in the room, are monitoring spacecraft systems and making sure like things are going like they're supposed to.
Yeah.
There's like 1 or 2 people in the room actually to talk to the astronauts.
Right.
Capcom, they're the ones who actually call up. That was not me. And so I used to monitor propulsion systems. Now I'm less of like real time mission support and more like engineering.
Propulsion systems. So I'm sorry, I know you're. So propulsion systems, that would be the jets, the things that propel
thrusters and like tanks.
So you're the guy that makes sure they don't blow up.
Yeah. That's what I used to do. Yeah.
That sounds really like not like a job I want. I mean, it sounds cool. It sounds like, but at the same time, it seems like, man, like if something goes wrong, like what are you gonna do? I mean, you're at a desk. You're like, hey guys, just so you know, I got this indicator on my computer letting me know that your left engine is about to explode.
About to go.
You guys should probably prepare for that.
Well, I mean,
how does that go? I know for guys who are in that position, you're trained and you have protocols and things that you run through and all that kind of stuff. But to me, it just seems like there would just be nothing but disaster.
So I mean, this is why it takes so long to like build and develop and fly a spacecraft, because you have to plan for things like this. Like you plan for the worst and you have to protect against it. And all the people in the flight control rooms have gone through years of training to make sure that they know, like, when something goes wrong, here's exactly what I do. Because people's lives are kind of in your hands. And kind of in your hands. And I mean, that's a big responsibility, and so you have to know exactly what to do. Fortunately, like, most spacecraft have built-in, like, any more automation that will take care of, like, if the computers on board see something going wrong, the computers will take care of it before the ground ever has to interact. Which is awesome, which will much quicker, but it's also a change. Like in the past, it was all like humans having to make calls on the ground and being like, what do? We have to figure this out now. And there still is a lot of that, but it's moving much more towards automation. My job is much more like, before they fly the mission, how do we make sure that these vehicles are ready to like test and fly the way they're supposed to? And so I was in propulsion. Now I'm more on like rendezvous prox ops, which is like,
that sounds like a military job. I mean, rendezvous, prox ops.
Yes.
You know, it's like you're the Navy SEALs in outer space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to rendezvous with the space station.
Yeah.
So all these commercial spacecraft, like Boeing and SpaceX, are building these spacecraft to send people to the space station. My team monitors the docking systems when they're flying up towards the space station to make sure that they rendezvous correctly.
Yeah.
And we do a lot of like pre-mission work, like making sure the sensors work like they're supposed to. They tested it correctly, all this stuff to make sure that when they actually fly, it's going to work.
All right, so what's the, help me out with this. So, because there's somebody else that I know, her name is Lauren. She, like, you know, my family knew her. My mom is really good friends with her mom. Her last name used to be Spencer. She's married now. I don't remember what her last name is. It's Lauren something.
Formerly Spencer.
And she works at like the Jet Propulsion Lab in California.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, Jet Propulsion Lab. Yeah.
Is that actually what it's
JPL,
called?
Yeah.
Yes. Sweet, I got it right. Yeah. That's a little point for me. So like, what's the because what you're saying kind of sounds like, I mean, I know it's all interconnected to some degree, but like, you're saying you're like monitoring, I don't know, your jet propulsion, and you're, you know, making sure the rendezvous points and all that kind of stuff go good. How does that stuff work with, like, because they're so disconnected as far as space. So like, one's in California, you know, you're over here in Houston, Texas, and then you got one like way off in, you know, some part in California. Like, how does that work? You know,
it just takes a lot of coordination. So JPL is kind of an interesting example. Like, here in Houston, we're human spaceflight. Like, that's what we do. We're the Human Spaceflight Center.
Okay.
JPL doesn't do nearly as much with like human spaceflight. They're much more like robotics. So like, you hear about rovers going to Mars. Like, they build and test the rovers at JPL.
Nice.
It's like, I have a girl I went to school with. Yeah. Like, works at JPL.
Hey, get a little close. Just make sure you're nice and making out with the microphone.
A girl I went to school with at Purdue works at JPL and like working on the next Mars rovers. She's posting on Instagram all the time, like she's there with the robots. And so a lot of the NASA centers, I mean, there are centers all over the country. They all have like kind of different
specifics.
Roles. Yeah. And so like, Houston's a lot of like the training of astronauts happens there. The flight control teams are there. Other centers will ship spacecraft there to do like environmental testing. So they have like vacuum chambers that you can put these spacecraft in and like do all this testing. And so it takes a lot of coordination.
Yeah. I mean, for sure.
But
do you know why why is it that they decided to do things? I mean, you literally have the three coasts. You have the West Coast with the Jet Propulsion Lab and stuff like that. And then you've got like the Central Coast, right? The
third coast.
Yeah, the third coast. Yeah. Thank you. Where NASA, is
Johnson Space Center.
Yeah, thank you, Johnson Space Center. I live here. You'd think I would know that. And then you have Florida, which is all the way on. And you're like, so why did NASA? Do you know
spread
why?
itself out so much? So I don't exactly know. One of my guesses would be politics, because I think I know like governors and things
Sure,
like that
yeah,
really
yeah.
like
Yeah,
having
Uh-huh.
centers like that in their state.
Of course.
And so I'm sure back whenever they were making those decisions, politics was playing a big part of it. I mean,
That makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Instead of having like one cohesive, perfectly efficient system,
Yeah.
they're like, nah,
Yeah.
we'll make this as inefficient as humanly possible.
it's the government, bro. It's the government.
Yeah.
And so you think about companies like SpaceX. This is where spaceflight is becoming a lot more privatized.
Yeah,
And
which
so-
I was going to ask you about this. First of all, do you? I know, don't lose your track there, but I do want to know, like,
Yeah.
do you have interaction with people from SpaceX a lot? Are you pretty? Is NASA and SpaceX like best buds now? I mean, you know, because you're right, it is getting very privatized. So
Yeah, so we definitely interact with like SpaceX, Boeing, Sierra Nevada, all these like private companies that are starting to build
I don't know
spacecraft.
anything about Sierra Nevada.
Okay, they're developing a spacecraft. It hasn't really flown yet, but it will within the next couple of years. But yes, like especially my team. So like our team we kind of help with all the visiting vehicles that go to the space station. And so there are 4 or 5 different companies that are currently flying or building spacecraft to fly them. And so, yeah, we get to interact with all those people, like SpaceX people working out in California or wherever they're at, having meetings with them, just saying, hey, how's your testing going, all this.
Are SpaceX people coming to Texas at all, or is that just Tesla? I literally know nothing about this. I know Elon Musk is like, everyone talks about him like crazy. I think he's a very interesting person.
He's very interesting.
I don't know what's happening with him, though, in life in general.
I
I've heard that he's bringing Tesla to Texas, and
honestly, I don't really know. If I'm being honest, I'm not going to pretend to know.
Yeah.
I do know they have all this crazy stuff going on down in South Texas. I don't know if you've seen any like they're building a Mars rocket where they're trying to send all these people to Mars, and they're just like out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, way down south. And they're like launching it, and it keeps blowing up, and they're launching another one, and they're blowing it up.
This is SpaceX?
Yeah, SpaceX. Yeah.
Really?
But this is how they do it. They're rapid test and like build, test it,
Of course.
it breaks, build it again, test it, and breaks until they figure it out. It's just like
I know. I used to watch
Yeah.
some of their landings and stuff when they were doing the mobile landing units and stuff,
Oh, so
and I would watch some of their failed ones, like and then you see some of their successful ones, and you're just
It's
like,
incredible.
what
Yeah.
in the world, dude?
I remember-
and it's so funny. It's like, I remember when I was little, I would like see a movie, so like a sci-fi movie where a rocket would, or like a cartoon where a rocket would land like vertically like that, and I was always like, that's ridiculous. That's so like, that is not how that would work. And then you see SpaceX doing it, and you're like, what?
Yeah, what in the world?
My gosh.
I remember where I was the first time they did it, because like I think it was in the middle of the workday. We just happened to be at the office, and like all of us watched it live. We were just sitting there like, this is incredible.
Yeah.
You just see it coming down, just sticks the landing, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
And then they can.
It's like a skyscraper, literally.
Yes.
I mean, these things are
Just falling down
huge.
out of the sky,
They're
and
huge
it-
rockets, and just like,
Yeah.
like
And-
you're landing a building upright. I mean,
Yeah.
that's literally you're landing a building
Yeah.
upright, which
Yeah.
is just
It's
wild to
crazy.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now that they've been reusing rockets over and over and over again,
exactly.
because they launch and land, and it's making it way cheaper. And so
Really?
yeah,
Well,
way
that makes
cheaper.
sense,
'Cause,
obviously,
like
yeah.
the initial build and hardware and all that stuff is the
course.
expensive part, and like
Yeah.
they're just like, hey, we'll just reuse it.
Yeah.
And
Well, and back in the day, they're just like, dump that stuff off. Like,
dispose it.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of times, just dump it in the ocean when it came back down, or like you just lose.
So
it
the
all. It burns
environmentalists
up
are
in the-
happy too, huh?
Yeah, probably.
Nice. Well, that just shows the private, innovative markets and things like that. You just usually, just out of necessity, produce kind of a better end result. Obviously, it couldn't have gotten there without what the government had done through NASA in the first place. But it is just interesting how.
So there was definitely like all these private companies that are popping up now. Pretty much all of them got like initial funding or something from NASA. Like they won a contract to do something, and that got them up off the ground. And so now they're like up and running, but without NASA like kind of providing that start, like it might not have happened.
Right.
And so it's definitely moving towards that, because private companies can move so much faster.
Yeah.
They can do so much more testing like in-house. And
Yeah.
that's just hard for NASA to do because it's spread out.
Yeah.
It's a big government agency.
So what does that mean, like for the industry of like people who are going to be working in NASA? Like it seems to me like it used to be like such a small, like if you got to make it into that, like, if you were working in that area, like if you got to work for NASA in some way, it's like, man, you were like the, you know, few and the proud, like you were very, like, not that many people were working for NASA, you know? Whereas now it kind of seems like, man, like, if there's so many private companies doing it, like, it's kind of like a lot more people are kind of getting to have that dream fulfilled,
which
you
is
know?
cool. Like,
it is,
in my opinion, is awesome. Because like there are so many places you can go to work now and be involved in the space industry,
which
and it's just
awesome.
inspiring. It's just fun, and so it really has opened the door, and the spaceflight industry is just growing like crazy. There's so many like small startup companies that are just building rockets, launching small satellites up into space for different companies. Like, it's everywhere, and it's growing, and it's exciting.
So what are you like when you're like, you know, 10 years from now? What do you want to be doing with your NASA stuff? Are you gonna like? Do you have any desire to do something specific, or are you just kind of like, man, anything that involves me like putting people in outer space? You know?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything like specific. I just enjoy the idea of spaceflight. I think if you're gonna have it, like, everybody needs to have a job, right? You need to have a job, and so like do something you enjoy and that kind of inspires you. And so to me, it's just very cool to think about sending people into space and exploring.
Absolutely,
and it gives people something to dream about, and
totally.
I think the world needs that every once in a while. It's something that kind of unites us and like gives us something to dream about. And so to be involved in that's really cool.
Awesome.
So I'm just grateful to be involved in it. Really. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, all right. So, so that's your day job, and then you also you also teach, or not teach. That's my thing.
Yeah,
right?
you teach.
But you also lead music at the church and everything at Clearpoint, and so like this whole everything, like moving into kind of this music aspect of your life, like, you know, one thing that I find kind of interesting is people kind of have this perception of like really taking music seriously. It's almost like a silly thing, you know, like people don't really, you know, either you're going to be like the most famous person in the world, or like just don't pay attention to it at all.
Yeah.
And I've noticed like lots of really, really successful people who are in the world, like they have their jobs in other aspects of the world, like yourself. You're doing something that is really cool. I mean, it's amazing, and it's kind of, you know, it's awesome, like working with NASA and getting to send people into outer space. But at the same time, you're doing something in music. You're very interested in this music thing, and I've noticed people who are really like intellectually like, what's the right word? They're strong in their mind. They're people who really are smart. They work hard. They're intelligent. A lot of times they're also extremely good musicians. I mean, so many people who are, you know, you kind of think you kind of think in this line of like, oh, there's like the kooky artist type, which
the
is
creative, free spirit.
free spirit, you know, and that's, I mean, that is a thing, but there's also like, there's so many really artistic people who are doctors and nerds, and you know, I mean, you know, not to say that you're a nerd, I mean, you know, but you work for NASA, so you're kind of a nerd.
Like, I was a nerd in college, and probably less so now. I
have a hard time believing that, because you're like Mr. Basketball player. I have seen you ball, all right, with the basketball court. I just can't ever picture you as like,
I love school.
Nerd.
Academics. I loved it, dude. I loved every minute of it.
Well, so anyways, so that's, I guess that's kind of like, you know, what is it that you know, kind of was music something that you just fell into? Was music something that you really pursued passionately? How did that kind of work out for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been doing music, I guess, pretty much, I mean, since I was a kid. So my mom forced me to take piano lessons when I was young. Hated it. I think most kids who have to take piano lessons hate it, but like, I'm super glad I did.
Me too.
And I wish I would have stuck with it, of course, like everyone does. I probably did that for 2, maybe 3 years, and then I started playing trumpet in band, like in 5th grade, and I played trumpet all the way through high school and then first semester of college even. And so I loved just being in band, like jazz band, all that.
You're a trumpet player, so
I was a trumpet player.
All right, so your nerd bona fides are starting to kick in now.
Yeah,
I got you. Trumpet player in band.
Trumpet player in
I
band.
got you.
I loved every minute, bro. Yeah. So yeah, I played trumpet. I played French horn at a concert one time. That was
nice.
It was kind of a train wreck, but it did not go well. But it was fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I played trumpet for a long time, and then I didn't actually start singing until like I did one semester of choir senior year in high school because all my friends were in it, and I wanted to have some fun with my friends before I graduated.
Nice.
And then I didn't really sing much in college. So during college, it was a lot of just academics and playing club volleyball and music. I wasn't as actively involved in music. I picked up guitar when I was down here for a summer. I was just so bored because I didn't know anybody. And so I just bought a cheap guitar, started playing on it, and it stuck. And so I've been playing guitar for 4.5 years now, probably. And then really started singing when I got involved in the worship team at church. So that's probably been 3.5-ish years. But so my music involvement has changed. For a long time, it was trumpet, and then it kind of morphed into guitar and singing. But I love music, and I think you're so right. Like, there's value in developing both sides of your brain, right?
Of course.
And I've always been a proponent of if you want to be like intelligent, well then like give that side of your brain a break every once in a while and get involved in some other stuff.
Right.
I think a lot of people kind of isolate themselves and focus too hard on like kids who specialize, and all they do is school. Like if they're missing out on the extracurriculars and the music that will help them kind of develop just a well-rounded brain, I guess. And so I'm really glad that I was involved in sports, music, and academics, all of it. And I think that helped me, I don't know, just kind of develop just more general.
Yeah.
More generally. And so when people say like, oh, musicians are free-spirited, art, like, yeah, there are some, but man, like, music is a great tool for like helping kids develop.
Right. Well, some of the smartest people all throughout history have been incredible musicians. I mean, some of the most well-known people from history are who you don't associate with music are some of the most talented musicians in the world. Yeah. And these are the eggheads, the people who did some intellectual great feat or great thinkers or some inventor, and so many times they are some of the most talented musicians that you would have come across back in the day. So it is one of those things where I think our pop culture society has sold this idea of artists being one particular way, which I think was probably good for them to sell in a certain way because of it sold the image and they were able to make a buck off of it. So that, fine, that whatever that works for them. But as far as just knowing musicians and like that other Lauren, the one that is working the other rocket scientist that I know, not really, but she was always very good with music and things like that too. So it's really cool, and definitely I think it speaks to that idea of being developed in all parts of yourself as a person. They contribute to each other and end up making you better
develop in other areas,
other things, and definitely.
Giving your mind a break in one area and coming back to it later will help. It helps you grow more in that area if you take your mind off it for a while and do something else.
All right, so I'm going to switch gears and talk about other stuff in life. So I saw this article the other day from Rotten Tomatoes. I'm always just kind of looking at things now. I don't really know why. I'm just kind of looking at what our culture is doing and different things going on in society. So I saw this thing on Rotten Tomatoes, and it was like 91 movies that are coming out in 2021 and that to be excited about. And you're like, oh yeah, to be excited about. And so I'm not gonna lie, I sent you that that article, and right off the bat I opened the article, and the first thing I'm like, I have no idea what movie that is.
Oh yeah,
I was like,
I think 86 of the 91. I'm like, I've never heard of this movie.
And not only like did I never hear of it, but as I looked at it, I was like, I am not excited about these movies. I mean,
I made a little list. I'm like, there were about 7 I was actually excited about.
So what is the deal? Why do you think this is a thing in the world when it comes to movies in particular, I think books can be this way. Music is this way too, but I think music is a little bit kind of softer around the edges. But like when it comes to the critics of movies, right? So this movie's Rotten Tomatoes, and it's put on, this article is put on by a critic or somebody who is critic like, right? And I'm like, man, why do they never like the movies that are worth liking?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're always.
Why is their opinion always wrong about that?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's all subjective to a degree, but like, my gosh, like, I mean, I feel like movies are meant to tell you a story, to entertain, to convey a meaning of some kind. Like if a movie is just entertaining but doesn't convey any kind of meaning, then it's not that good of a movie. I can see that. If it's not telling you something about life, But I mean, but if it's not at all interesting or enjoyable, like if there's no entertainment factor whatsoever, and it's just art, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. I'm sure somebody in the movie industry thinks this is like, I'm sure they think this is like the most evil thing I could be saying, but you know what I mean? Like it's like you see some movies and you're like,
it just wasn't. Yeah, I mean, it's just every person's different. Like,
but why is it that like Rotten Tomatoes and these critics, like, why do they always go, like you said, like 86 of the 91 movies, you're like, I mean,
I don't know. That's a good question. I thought about, because Rotten Tomatoes, I mean, the idea is kind of interesting. Like, you essentially vote on like how good the movie was,
the
right?
people have
the people vote,
yeah,
right?
But then there's a critic vote too with the Rotten Tomatoes. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. Okay.
So there's a critic rating, and then there's an audience rating.
Okay.
And it's funny because, like, all the time, the audience rating, if the audience loves a movie and the critics hate a movie, I'll probably go watch that movie because I'm pretty sure it's going to be good, like just based off of the Rotten Tomatoes.
Like the people love it, and I don't care about the critics. Like,
but if the critics love a movie and the audience is like, it's like usually the audience is, and I'm sure the critics are like, yes, well, you're one of the audience. You're just a simpleton,
Yes.
And I'm willing to take on that.
I am a simpleton when it comes to movies.
Yes.
I just want to be entertained. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, sure, I'm just a simpleton, but explain to me why I can be more than a simpleton.
I want to be more.
You just got to tell me.
To rise above my station.
Yes. So I don't know what their deal is.
I don't know. It must just be what they're looking for in movies. Like, critics are actually looking. Like, when I watch a movie, all I care about is being entertained.
Right.
Like, that's it. And like a good storyline and like some action, probably.
Sure.
Critics are probably looking for just things that I wouldn't even care to think about.
Well, see, I will say, like, I'm kind of artistic in the sense of I enjoy great camera work, so that I'm forgetting the name of it. 1941, I forget the name. It was one of the World War movies that came out recently.
Christopher Nolan.
Yes, and it was shot to seem like a one shot, like the whole movie
like continuous
seems
shot.
like a one shot take. And I thought, I didn't know that going in, and I was literally watching the movie with my brother and my dad, and I just kind of, I said, when is the last time they cut? I was just kind of hit me.
Been one scene for the past hour and a half.
And so I started paying attention, and they didn't. They I know they actually did. They're just really great,
good at making it seem like.
Yeah, they're really good filmmakers, so I can appreciate those kinds of things,
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's almost here's my secret opinion, which no longer secret.
Sharing it with the world.
I think it's like something about, like, if a movie is enjoyable, it's almost like critics aren't allowed to like it. And I think music people do that too. Almost like if there's a pop song that's just too simple, but it's good. Like, it's good, but it's just too simple. It's like they just can't handle it. It's like they have to hate it because of its simplicity. And I feel like people, like, critics are always like dogging on the Marvel movies. And, some of these famous, what's the guy who made like the Godfather movies and all these mafia movies? He has like disdain for these Marvel movies, and I'm like, bro, like the Godfather, 2, it's a great movie. I think he did The Sopranos too. Like, that's all good stuff. But I'm like, dude, they're different things. Like they're
totally different. Yeah.
They're meant to accomplish. I don't know. I love all the Marvel movies.
I enjoy the Marvel movies. Yeah.
Yeah. I even like the DC movies. You know.
I don't watch those as much.
Yeah.
But I mean, I definitely enjoy. Yeah, Marvel movies are great. And I think there's something about like having so like pretty much all Marvel movies are the same. Like the storyline is the same. Okay, it's a hero defeating some bad guys, a lot of aliens, and like you know what's gonna happen in the end. But like there's something okay about that. You're like, I know what I'm getting into here, and I'm gonna enjoy this.
Yeah.
And you know what to expect.
And you're like, Loki's never actually dead.
Yeah, he's coming back. I just watched through the Thor movies not that long ago. And I'm like, he dies and he's back. And
Me
you're
too.
like, well.
Speaking of Thor, by the way, a little slight tangent here is so Thor's got a new comic book that they just kind of rebooted the comic for Thor, right? They started with a fresh writer, fresh like storyline, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's not literally starting from square one, but it's just a new spin on it.
Yeah.
And I have Thor issue 5 of it. I've been keeping up with it, right?
Okay.
So from number 1 all the way through, and I have the issue 5 of that, first print, first cover, and they introduce a new character, a new villain, and so it was really cool because my comic book store put all this stuff on hold for me, but then COVID hit, so I didn't go back for like a long time.
Yeah.
And when I went back, they kept all that stuff for me.
Just on hold.
They did. They didn't have to do that. It was long enough. I would have understood if they were like, "Look, man, we needed to sell it."
Yeah.
But they didn't. They held on to it for me. That comic ended up, it's actually like incredibly valuable. Because I say incredibly valuable. To me, it's incredibly
relatively
valuable because it's a first edition. So of the brand new villain. So I had it sent off and slabbed and everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say and its sleeve is like
exactly. Anyways, but I see what you're saying. Like with the Marvel movies, I will say this. With the Marvel movies, I feel like they did 10 years, 22 films of basically, and I know that it's kind of intentional to an extent, but like really all for the purpose of like you never have to really deal with death in these movies, and that's the thing where like that kind of is a weakness on all these superhero movies because like
the good guys never die. Like
because one of the things that makes a story good is this struggle that you have to deal with of life and losing your life, right?
And loss and
so it makes you wrestle with all those things. And in the Marvel movies, you never really have to do that, except for finally
at the very end, last 4 minutes.
You lose the one main character, and then you kind of realize you're like, wow, all of these movies were about Tony Stark. So I see that. All right, so do me a favor. Let's talk about some of the movies you are excited about. Okay, so there's 91 movies to be excited about.
Okay.
Almost all of them not that exciting.
Okay, we'll toss those out now.
But give me a couple of them that you were like, oh, okay, cool.
Okay. There are a couple. So I'll start with Space Jam 2 is coming out with LeBron.
Okay, I did not see that on that list.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to lie, it was really hard to get through that entire.
I
did not see
like,
Space
that one's
Jam
been
2.
on my radar
Are you
for a
kidding
while.
me?
Yes, dude, finally. So, I mean, I was a huge Space Jam fan growing up. That was the movie with Michael Jordan and Bugs Bunny.
I know.
Like, oh, man.
Yeah.
And so they're finally coming out with another one. It's supposed to come out this year.
Yeah, it's kind of poetic, too, because, like, with LeBron, you'll know. It's like, oh, that's, like, perfect, because Space Jam 2 will be almost as good as Space Jam 1. Like, LeBron is almost as good as...
Them's fighting words. Them's fighting words. All right.
I'm just kidding. No, I am too.
So definitely that one. I will 100% see that.
Do you think LeBron is as good as Michael Jordan?
Man, it's hard to know. They're different times. They're playing against different. The league is different now than it was then.
I hear you.
And I hear you. I think
I'm an MJ loyalist. I mean, as of right now, I'm not. I will say I'm not against having my mind changed though. So a couple more years in the NBA, LeBron. I mean, if he takes it to the championship and, I mean, he's obviously like an amazing player. I mean, I don't blame people for having questions, and I do not know enough about basketball to really make those decisions, So
my thing is like, I think Michael had the advantage of being like the first global superstar, and he had like the icon, like the persona to like everybody in the world knew him, and what was he, 6 for 6 in NBA championships? Like every time he went, he won, right?
Yeah.
I think he was 6 for 6.
Yeah.
And LeBron's been to like 38 championships and won like 4 or 5, like a couple.
38
He's been there like every year.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't have quite like the winning percentage in championships that Michael does. But I think if they played,
but I gotta say, like, I mean, when they were up against the Golden State Warriors, okay, so we're in Houston. I got to go to a playoff game and with the Rockets, and it was Rockets versus the versus the Golden State.
I went to one of those.
So I went to the I went to one of the games that they won, I want to say.
We went to one they lost.
Oh,
yeah. It's sad.
Well, no, am I wrong? I really can't remember. No, I think they did lose. I take it back. I think they lost because I remember something about red confetti, and I was like, no, I think it was joking about red confetti.
Oh.
Anyways, no, but I remember we were there, and one of the guys in front of us, total strangers, and you know how like everyone's best friends.
Oh, in a game, yeah.
And this guy was like, well, I mean, my gosh, it's like they're fighting the Avengers over here, and you're like, yeah. So like when LeBron loses against the Golden State Warriors that year, you're kind of like, yeah. I mean, it was basically LeBron versus the Avengers.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're kind of like, okay. So I don't hold that against him.
No.
So.
I mean, losing to that Warriors team is. I mean, that's almost to be expected.
Yeah.
Like, they were...
It's ridiculous.
Ridiculously good. Yeah. But what's more impressive to me is the next year when they came back, and they did beat him. Like, LeBron on the Cavs. I mean, he had Kyrie, and he had Kevin Love.
Sure.
He had some help.
Some addition.
He had some help. But, like, coming back and beating them that next year, to me, that was a feat.
Yeah.
Yeah, a feat. So
I'm with you. All right. So you're excited about Space Jam.
I'm excited.
And LeBron may, in fact, he still has some time left on the clock. He could show that he's the best. Who knows? Yeah. So Space Jam. What else popped out in the movie? I mean, because here's the thing. All right. I am a movie person. I love going to the movies, which is a sad thing in society nowadays that you don't really get to do that. But I'm still like, I'm gonna be a movie person, like till the day I die. Yeah. So like I am
fun.
Yeah. So what else you got? What's another movie?
The other one. So there are a couple other ones that stuck out. The one I've been waiting on probably the longest is the next James Bond.
Oh, yeah.
No Time to Die, I think is what it's called.
Oh yeah.
It's me and my roommate. Last year at the beginning, like end of 2019, early 2020, we watched through probably the last 5 or 6 of them in preparation for the new one to come out, which then got delayed an entire year.
Yes,
and then
I know.
I think I saw on that list that it got delayed till November now. Again,
oh man,
like another 7 or 8 months. It was supposed to.
Who
come
knows?
out in April.
You may not get to even see it
in
this
2021.
year.
So I was pretty disappointed when I saw that.
Yeah,
but definitely that one.
Yeah.
I just like it.
Yeah, I love the James Bond movies. I mean, that's one of those like, and I really feel like Daniel Craig has done.
I like him as
a
James
solid
Bond.
James Bond. I mean, I really feel like he was a step up from
So I don't
Pierce.
know many of the older movies. So really, anything before Daniel Craig, I don't know super well.
Dude, Pierce Morgan? You didn't watch any of the Pierce Morgan?
Not really, dude.
Oh my gosh, you're making me feel kind of old right now,
Sorry, bro.
I mean, we're supposed to be contemporaries, and you're making me feel like, I mean,
you just
how old are you? Please tell me you're older than 25. You're not
26.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Praise the Lord. All right.
I'm 21, Dustin. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, because when I was little, I was watching like the Pierce Morgan ones, and they were good.
Okay.
I mean, I enjoyed them. I was probably too young to be watching some of them. But
yeah, see, we didn't watch any of them growing up. Like it was really like college when I actually started like paying attention and like watching them.
Yeah.
So like I just didn't see any of the older ones.
Yeah. Well, you should go back and watch some of the older ones. You should go watch you should definitely go watch like 1 or 2 Sean Connery ones.
Okay.
Who did he pass like last year, 2 years ago? I think
I'm not sure.
Do you know who Sean Connery is? Bro.
Don't hate me for this, dude. I don't know actors and actresses very well.
That window over there is really thin glass, and this is a second story. I'm
going to go now.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, well, you should go watch some of those. They're hilarious. Like, they're good movies, but they're also like they're absurd in a way where you're like, y'all, come on now. But they work. I mean, they're genuinely enjoyable.
Were these before the Pierce?
Yes.
Brosnan one?
Yeah. These are like way. These are like
these are
like
originals?
60s. Yeah.
Are those like the original? Was he the original James Bond?
I want to say there was one before him, but he was the one. Sean Connery's the one that really made James Bond.
Okay.
At least this is my understanding. From my fairly ignorant perspective of movie history. Which I'm not like.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So, but I think he was the one that really kind of like made the character, like all these things that we know about James Bond, like how he's like a certain way with women and all that kind of stuff. That came from Sean Connery. Yeah. Okay. But then, so like, gotta watch some with him. Gotta watch some of the Pierce Morgan ones, just because that's like, that was a different, like, it's funny how they all have their own, like, he was like a clean, Sean Connery was like a kind of a rough 007, like he was like handsome, but kind of like a rough character. Yeah. Whereas like, Pierce Morgan was like
classy.
He was
like
he was slick. You know, I mean, he just had this like, I'm smooth, secret agent, right?
Yeah.
And whereas Daniel Craig is like a brawler. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
he's just
very
much more
so.
like, he's just like, I'm confident, but I'm not like trying to be like overly sexy or anything. I mean, I'll just punch you in the face.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's kind of cool to see all those. So I was kind of excited to see on that list the Black Widow movie coming out. I was like, that's kind of exciting to see. There was a couple other ones.
I do enjoy the Marvel like spin-off movies.
Yes,
like the side character movies.
Yeah,
those
absolutely.
are pretty good.
Are you watching WandaVision by chance?
I haven't watched any of it yet.
Okay. Do you have Disney Plus?
Yeah.
It's cool. It's funny. So me and my wife, like, there's not many shows that Kelly really gets into, but she's like totally fell in love with WandaVision. Like she's like, and they're releasing it one episode every week, like
it's the
back when the way they used to do things.
2021 people.
But if you watch, it makes sense. They're doing that. They're doing that because I'm not going to spoil things for you, but they're doing that for a reason. To mimic something that's actually happening in the show. So it's actually really
makes
cool.
Sense.
I like it actually.
And
it gives us something like every Friday we're like, the new WandaVision's coming out.
That's true. There's something about delayed gratification. You have to wait for it, earn it, kind of. Yeah.
What are you talking about?
No, I want all 26 episodes now.
Yeah,
I'm going to watch them tonight.
Yeah, exactly. We're not allowed to say things like that. I want to work for NASA now.
Now.
I don't care that I don't have an engineering degree. Anyways, and then what was there? Gosh, man, I'm having a hard time remembering, and I would use my phone except for it's over there being a camera. Such a professional setup. Gosh, man, what was that movie? There was another one on that list, and I was genuinely like, this is probably the one I was most excited about, and I cannot remember for the life of me.
A couple other ones I had, maybe they're saying there's another Fast and Furious coming out.
That'll be cool.
Fast 9, I think. Fast 926.
However many they can make.
There's also, I think, another Mission Impossible coming.
That wasn't the one I was thinking of, but I'm not gonna lie. I mean, like, I will watch Tom Cruise be that character until he's 90.
They're just fun. Like, they're just good movies.
They are.
Another Tom Cruise, the Top Gun.
Oh,
is that it?
Oh,
Maverick.
Yes.
Okay. Top Gun.
That movie, I've been waiting for that one for a while. I've been watching all the videos. Did you see how they did the shots, like how they got the footage of them in the cabs? Like they're real.
So. The like in the plane?
Yeah. So like what they did is they have the actors in actual jets, right, with a real pilot in the front seat. And then they film the actors in the back, like pretending to do their stuff. So like you'll see them take off, and you'll see like the G-force like hit them.
It's real because they're filming them in the back seat.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, Tom Cruise is. Dude, that man is bad. Yeah. I mean, like,
that would be so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, they're
flying
like,
around in the,
they're like literally hitting like, the sound barrier, and he's in there just taking it, and I'm like, dude, like, if I can do that when I'm, I mean, he's not like crazy old or anything, but
50?
Yeah, 50? I mean,
I don't know.
I'm only in my 30s, and I'm already kind of getting a little,
I don't know if I can handle it.
I'm not in the best shape I've ever been in. So I just feel I'm excited about that movie.
Yeah,
definitely.
Definitely, that'll be a fun one. Yeah, I know. And it's been like, what has it been, like 30 years since the first one came out? It's been a long time, right? So the world's been waiting for a while.
Yeah, and it also is kind of funny, like the like the concept, like he's the same like rank that he's been 30 years ago.
30 years later, still out here doing his thing.
Yeah, and I think that's like, I think it's a little absurd, but like it kind of makes it funny, and you just kind of accept it. You're like, yeah,
of course
sure.
he's still doing that. Yeah, well, that's what he's always gonna do. Yeah,
it's kind of like Bruce Willis in the Die Hard movies.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, yeah, man.
Of course he's still.
Of course, basically just barely detective. You know,
he's always gonna be that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing about the Top Gun movies is I know a lot of people go back now and they make fun of the first Top Gun movie. You know, this is one of those things where they look back with like this perspective on these movies, and you're like, that's not fair, because
you're judging it based on today's.
Yeah, because like when that first came out, like you can say like all high and mighty, like Top Gun, that's silly, but it's like, no, like
back then it was like
it was awesome.
Top-notch,
you know, I mean, I'm sure a pilot. You know, my stepbrother is a pilot, and you know, I'm sure like from his perspective, he'd be able to be like, that's ridiculous, but. But honestly, I think he likes the movie. I don't know. I'm gonna double check that. But anyways, that's just one of those things that people do, and I'm like, that's not fair. Like people do that all the time. Like the Star Wars movies.
I was gonna just say the Star Wars movies.
When the episode 1 came out with Anakin when he was a little boy.
Yeah.
All right. I remember. All right. I was there. We all went to those movies, and I was in the theater. Nobody walked out sad.
Yeah.
Nobody walked out saying that was terrible. What a disappointment. Everyone walked out of that. First of all, there were people camping to get in.
Waiting to get into those movies. Yeah.
Yes. And they all walked out like, that was great. Oh my gosh, Star Wars is back. And then afterwards, they had some time to reflect, and they're like, man, there's some inconsistency. Like, why? It's like almost totally different worlds. And this Jar Jar Binks character, and everyone starts hating on Jar Jar Binks. I'm like, you all love Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah.
You're a bunch of hypocrites. You totally got down with Jar Jar Binks. I was there.
I saw you.
Yeah.
You stood up and clapped in the movie theater.
Yeah. It's like his toy sold like crap tons of toys. I'm like, I know you. I was in your room. You had a Jar Jar Binks toy. Don't act like you didn't like Jar Jar Binks. You know, but they did that like with all these, like, you know, and then when the new movies came out, the 6 or 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Like, I remember being like, okay, some things I was like, okay, I was a little bit like, I was mostly excited because I liked the way they shot it, that it would be more consistent with the old style.
Yeah.
And the characters and things like that was a little bit more consistent with the old style, which I thought was all good. But like, at a certain point, you realize you're like, man, they really did recycle the story. Like,
yes,
like in a painful way. And you're like, at least with episode 1, 2, and 3,
it was kind of a new storyline.
They weren't recycling the story. You're kind of watching it going like, you know, this is not the same movie. This is a new movie.
Yes.
And
7 especially, you're like, I swear I've seen this before.
Yeah, I know. Oh, and did you hear, like, you seen that comedian who makes jokes about how, like, he said, he's like, it's about what's her name? J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter.
Oh, okay.
He jokes about, he's like, she did not make a masterpiece. She made Star Wars with crappy lightsabers. And he goes on and he talks about all the similarities.
How it's Star Wars.
Yeah, I forget who does that, but it's really funny. That's like, because you go through and you're like, oh my gosh, like there are a lot of parallels. Anyway, so well, I am excited about some movies coming out. I don't know about those Rotten Tomato these critics and the 91 movies, but I'd say there's at least 5 that I'm genuinely excited about, and 10 that I'm like, I'm
see it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
Especially if theaters start oopening back up. Like you were saying, man,
I want so badly
to go
for theaters.
To a movie theater.
Yeah, funny story. Before we kind of close out our time here, me and Kelly, right, like when the pandemic hit, like hard, right? But everyone was still kind of like, what do we do? Like, so movie theaters were actually still open.
Yeah.
Me and Kelly went to the movie theaters, and it was like it was dead
Ghost
empty.
town,
I mean,
yeah.
we were the only,
The only people.
I'm like, it's funny. It's like, it's probably the safest time I've ever been to a
been
movie
to-
theater, actually, is that because there was
No one
nobody.
else there.
And you know, like all day long, there'd been nobody there. I mean, like we walked up and the people were like,
oh, hey.
yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
got popcorn, yeah.
Yeah, sure, yeah. We'll
we'll
pop some
make
fresh
a batch
popcorn.
right
Yeah.
now.
No, it was so funny, and I can't remember the movie that we went and watched, but I just remember being like, "Wow, this is like," I really felt like, man, like the world is it's different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this is weird.
Yeah, that's kind of
And-
when you felt it a little bit. You're
Yeah.
like, this is something's going on here. Yeah.
So I'm with you, man. I want those movies
Oh,
to come
I
back.
agree. We were talking about that the other day, just how bad we miss just like going out to dinner and going to a movie.
Yes.
Like it's not something big, but just like some of the stuff you used to be able to do. And I think it'll start coming back. I think the world's coming back a little bit. So yeah, things to look forward to for sure.
Absolutely. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for coming and
fun.
talking with me and just chilling. I was going to say, this is kind of one of those things where I don't have much of a purpose other than just want to. I have some musical buddies. Literally,
Let's get
did you know
together and
that?
talk.
Did I tell you? Did you see what the name of this podcast is?
It was like Dustin's
Musical buddies.
Yeah.
Yes. I was like,
Hey,
I labored so long to figure out what I was going to call this thing, and then I was like,
You know what?
I don't just
call it what it
it's-
is.
I'm
Yep.
just talking to my friends who do music and
Yeah.
stuff like that about anything and everything. So, anyways, I
I'm here
appreciate
for
you
it.
coming
Yeah,
on.
this is great.
And
This is fun.
you guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part. And if you want to see more of this, do all the things you're supposed to do: subscribe, follow, like, share, comment. I don't know how algorithms work. Anyways, that's the only pitch I'm doing. You guys, see you later. Thanks, man.
Have a good one. Yeah.